Hey everyone, Kenneth with investwithkenneth.com, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how we find your home's true value. Now, a big misconception that a lot of people get is that you should go with the realtor who says they can sell your house for the highest price, but you really want to look at the data, right? Because they can be showing you an inflated number just to get your business. And in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how exactly we find your home's value. That way you can compare all the data and all the reports and actually find its true value and not just make a decision based off of a price tag, which later on in the future might not come to fruition, and then you're left, with a house on the market that's overpriced and no one's buying, and then you're stuck wondering why. So in today's video, we're going to break it down for you to give you the knowledge you need to make the best informed decision for you and your family. Okay, so how do we find your home's value? Well, there's two things that you got to consider here. One, I'm going to explain to you what it is that we look for, and then I'm going to explain to you how we actually determine value based off of that data. So the first thing that we're going to need from you guys, but not limited to, is going to be the number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms, square footage, the year built, the lot size, have you done any recent upgrades, and obviously the address, so we can see what community it's in, because that is also going to be a big determining factor in the value upon other things. Another great thing that I love for my clients to do is send me pictures of their house. Now, they don't have to be super detailed, but just so I can kind of understand how it is going to compare to other properties, right? Is it tile? Is it carpet? What kind of countertops do you have? How high are the ceilings? These are things that are going to give me clues without actually visually seeing the property, in person, on helping me determine the value. Because really, without seeing the property, even if I have all of the data that we just talked about, without seeing it in person or at least pictures, it's going to be more of a ballpark, and that ballpark can be within a range of 20 or 30 or 40,000, depending on the community. So it's really important to see pictures at least, but in person is obviously much better. Okay, so what do we do once we have all of the information about your house? We have all the details, pictures of it, we know what your situation is. Okay, great. So this is how we go about determining the value. The first thing that we're going to do is get into our system and put a pin on your property, right? We're going to locate it, and then we're going to look within a mile, okay? We're going to look for properties that have sold recently within the last 90 days. If we need more data, we can go a little bit further back, but I like using 60 to 90 day data so it's fresh. Once we have that 1 mile radius around your property, we're going to want to make sure that it's not crossing any major roads or interstates, anything like that, because obviously, I know that from I know from personal experience that, we live in a community, and right across the street, which is a main street, the prices are totally different, right, across the street. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So first off, I like to look at the community first, look at the data inside the community. And then if I'm not really getting the results I want, or maybe there was a figure that you had in mind and it's just not meeting that, then I'll go a little bit outside of that, see what's going on. But again, I really like to keep things as close to your subject property as possible, because that is going to give us the most realistic answer as to what we can sell your home. Okay, so we have all of the data, right? We know all the details of your property. We've created that 1 mile radius around your home. And now we see a bunch of properties that have sold in the last 90 days. Now, what do we actually do with that information? Well, what we're basically doing is trying to find an identical property and seeing what it sold for, right? Because if I can find a property that's identical to yours and it sold for $200,000, that's a good indicator that yours is gonna be right around the same. Now, in many cases, in fact most, they are never able to find an identical property, right? Because every house is different, people do different upgrades, there's different floor plans. So then we start to look at what is similar, right? What is the closest thing to this house that we can find? And then we make adjustments, right? One might have, more bedrooms, less bathrooms. It might have granite countertops as opposed to Formica. It might have it might sit on a bigger lot, so the yards are bigger. So these are things that we're going to take into account and make adjustments for, so we can try to find the most accurate price point available. So one thing I do want to caution you guys of is that you don't want to go with a realtor who just gives you the highest price. I've seen it so many times where I go to talk with the seller, they're excited and they say, hey, well, this other realtor, Bob told me he could sell it for $20,000 more, right? And that's what he wants to start the price at. So we run through the numbers, I explained to them the whole process, and I was like, look, if you truly want to maximize dollars, you need to appeal to the biggest audience possible. And in order to appeal to a large audience, it's not just having a lower price point, but having a price point that is as close or maybe right underneath fair market value, okay? Take a look at this chart right here, okay? When we price our property too high, we're losing a ton of buyers. Same way, if we price it too low, we're attracting, everything, but we don't want that, right? We don't want to price it too low, but we also don't want to price it too high. It's a little bit of a dichotomy. A good strategy that's worked for me in the past is being somewhere around the middle, typically just below it, maybe like $1,000 or a little bit of a difference, because we're gonna get more buyers. And when we draw attention to a property, it creates a sense of a bidding war around the property. And even though we may only be asking 130, we have some very unique strategies on how we drive a ton of buyers to the property all on one day. This way, all the buyers are looking at all the other potential buyers and saying, man, we're gonna have to make a good offer, right? Same thing, the realtor's telling them, hey, look, ton of people here, ton of people interested, let's put our best foot forward, let's put in our strongest offer to show them that we're serious. And that inevitably ends up driving up the price. So don't just jump on board just because you think, oh, well, this guy says he could sell it for more, because one thing that can happen is that you put it up for too high of a price point, the market is kind of turned off by the situation, and the property just sits on the market. And let me tell you, the longer your house sits on the market, the lower the perceived value starts to take place. Because what happens is, buyers say, hey, well, that house hasn't sold in a month. In a super hot market like this where properties don't last a week, there must be something wrong with it, right? And it's a very, very common mistake that a lot of people make, right? They start off being too ambitious and they don't listen to the market, right? If your house hasn't sold in 2 weeks, there's something wrong. Maybe you need to repair it. Maybe you need to do some repairs. Maybe you need to lower the price, right? Maybe you need to increase the price. Maybe it's too low. They're like, hey, this is kind of sketchy. Why is it such a good deal? Is there something wrong with it, right? You want to evaluate and listen to the market, because as people say, if it's not compelling, it's not selling. So there you guys have it. That is kind of the psychology and the breakdown that we take into account when trying to price your home. I know a lot of people kind of just ask realtors for CMAs, they get the reports back and they pick the highest number, but really that's a good way to shoot yourself in the foot and really just have a stale property. You want to create it to when this property hits the market, it's like a feeding frenzy. People are jumping on it because they know it's a good deal, and inevitably it's going to drive up your price. One thing I always tell my clients is like, look, I know we're pricing it maybe a little bit less than what you wanted. Sometimes I tell them, hey, your house is actually worth this, and they're super excited. They're like, great, we didn't think it was worth that much. But there are some cases where homeowners believe their property is worth way more than it actually is. And so what I'll tell them is like, look, let's give it a shot at this price point at fair market value. And it's more than likely going to create a feeding frenzy that's going to drive up the price. But let's just say that it doesn't. At the end of the day, you're the homeowner. You don't have to accept any offer, right? So let's give it a shot. If you don't find an offer you like, then you don't have to sell. But I guarantee you that if we do it this way, we are going to attract more buyers than we would, being that needle in the haystack property, just waiting for the right person to, just really have an emotional buy and say, look, I'll buy it. I don't care for what price. But in many cases, we want to stay, we want to be in the fair market value. Thank you so much, homeowner, for sticking around to the end of the video. So there you have it. That is how we actually come up with the price analysis for your property. We actually do this all from scratch, fresh every time. I know there's a ton of automated systems out there, a lot of websites where you can go and kind of get an estimate. But the truth is, in most cases, those are inaccurate because they're estimates based on, averages in your zip code. Now, the issue with that is that your property is different, right? You might be taking care of your property way more than your neighbors, and vice versa. So it's never good to just go based off of, a guess. We take the data, we break it down, we analyze it, and we put it together and craft it for you in an elegant way for you to understand how we got to our number. And if at any point you aren't happy with it, feel free to shop around. We just want to give you the most honest and ethical price we can. Because keep in mind, right, if we're helping you sell the property, it's in everybody's best interest that we sell the house for top dollar, right? I'd rather, be honest with you and actually get the home sold at the end of the day than tell you, hey, yeah, I could sell it for 10,000 more, or that other guy, he said he could do it for 300, I can do it for 310. You know, and then at the end of the day, we put it up on the market. The market is just telling us it's not worth that. And then I look like the bad guy, right? Because I just threw a number out there, you were expecting it, and I couldn't deliver. So I'd rather under promise and over deliver than do things the other way around. And I hope you can appreciate, you know, the level of quality and ethics that we are trying to implement in our business practices. So that is going to be it. If you want to go ahead and find out your home's value, it's free and there's no obligation. You know, follow the form above, right? It's your name, email, phone number, and address, and we will go ahead and get that report over to you within 24 hours or less. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to telling you your home's actual value.